Thank you, Kira, and it's a great pleasure to be with you all here today. I'm going to dig straight into this. Minister Eyjólfur, Rob highlighted that we are in multiple crises: climate crisis, economic crisis, social crisis. And you are responsible for all of this, aren't you?
Local government.
Yeah. Infrastructure, local government. So what would you say are the key actions your ministry intends to prioritize to build resilience? And if you had, let's say, 2 wishes, what would they be?
I place particular emphasis on the strengthening the resilience of communities across the country in the face of multiple convergence challenges, in particular economic volatility and social transformation. I'm prioritizing the following key actions. So 2, strengthening the regional plans of action, which are strategic plans for each of the 8 major regions in Iceland. These include synergy between government institutions, local government, businesses, as well as academic communities and interest groups. These regional plans, which are called sóknaráætlanir or offensive plans, are vital tools for enabling regions to shape their own strategies and promote sustainable growth. These are very popular plans and have been very successful. By increasing funding and ensuring stronger alignment with the national policy, we can empower the regions to leverage their unique strength to withstand external shocks and build diverse local economies. The second is investing in core infrastructure in the rural areas. Resilience is built on solid foundations: transport, digital connectivity, and housing. Projects such as upgrading key road networks, expanding fiber optic coverage, supporting housing development in sparsely populated areas are key priorities for the government. I'd like to point out that Iceland is amongst the most sparsely populated countries in the world. Here in the southwestern corner of Iceland, called from Hvítá to Hvítá, which is Reykjavik and to the Southland and the Westland, 85% of the population lives in the southwestern part of the island. 82%. 8% live in the north, in the Reykjavik, in the Dagur area. So there are 90% lives here, 82% here in the southwest and 8% in the north. However, despite only 10% of the population residing in the rural areas does not undercut the importance of those regions in contribution to Icelandic economy and Icelandic GDP and Iceland as a whole. There's a historical reason for that, etc. And it's really important that we support those 10%. Several large industries are in the more sparsely populated areas of the island, and it's of paramount importance that these rural areas can thrive. If these areas thrive, Iceland thrives. That's absolutely crucial.
And the 2 wishes?
Yeah, the 2 wishes. If I had 2 wishes to address core challenges, number 1 is to ensure equal access to opportunities across all regions, whether in education, healthcare, employment, or innovation. This would enhance both the economic and social resilience of rural communities and support sustainable development across the country. The second is to strengthen our transportation infrastructure. It's an essential requirement for increasing the quality of life in the rural areas and road safety in general. And as an MP from the northwestern region of Iceland, which is the most sparsely populated area, it is the most sparsely populated areas of Iceland, then transportation infrastructure and transportation is a core issue. It's essential. Every meeting I go to, we talk about transportation and the road network. This is the foundation of life, livelihood, and standard of living in that region. And that is across the whole of rural Iceland, where the 10% live. I'm not saying it's also in the capital area where the 90% live. It's also huge challenges there, very important. But this is a basis for the living there.
So let's hope that you meet, maybe not tooth fairy, but some kind of fairy or good, solid politics that make those wishes come true.
Yeah, exactly. And we have to also sort of think long term. And
Yes.
I think this regional plans of action, which have been very successful, and I hope to be able to build on that. We are now 3 ministries which are participating in that. And I plan to have more ministries, have a memo to the government and have like for Ministry of Health, for instance, and in industries to participate in those regional plans of action. They've been very successful and they're sort of empowering the regions also in many ways.
Thank you. Ilona, with your background in public health and digital transformation, how do you see kind of that part, the digital environment shaping health and well-being, especially when it comes to misinformation, digital bubbles, my 4 kids always being on the phone, myself as well. Can we talk about these problems and solutions?
Well, we try. But first of all, I think what you've indicated and what is really important is that we're starting to see, let me just call it this digital environment as a critical determinant of health. So we're starting to understand how it influences our communities, how it influences individuals, and also I think that's very important at the local level, how it changes the economies of cities. If you think of, the big discussion that is going on now in many European cities, you will have less of that problem, but around Airbnb, which, has led to a total restructuring of the housing market, has made it impossible for locals to actually access that market. So that is a determinant of health. It relates to equity, it relates to access. And therefore, what we see is here we have a new world, a critical determinant of health, but it is also the determinant that is least governed. And one of the reasons of that difficulty of governing it is what Rob and what Kira alluded to, that here is a global industry that is actually being able to structure and restructure and determine the everyday life at the most local level. And we have so far always been reactive in our governance, mostly, rather than thinking forward and thinking, what could be done. One example is very much something you, Dagur, have also been involved in at one stage, is just to say, what can we learn from other public health strategies? And one of the most important public health strategies we've developed in health promotion is to create safe environments and is to create environments that are free of certain substances or behaviors or whatever. And so if we take the example of tobacco-free environments and tobacco-free schools, which wasn't easy to get, we can now see that around the world, in schools at the local level, there is this movement of phone-free schools. And
are smartphones the new tobacco?
the Surgeon General of the United States has said that exactly. He has said, yes, this is the new tobacco, and we need to apply the strategies that we apply to tobacco, which is age limits, which is, tobacco-free spaces, which is pricing, which is taxation. So all those governance mechanisms that we have in public health, that they be applied. But the difference perhaps to tobacco is that this is something, and you indicated it, we cannot just impose from above. Because the whole digital environment, the tools, the way of using it, has already become so ingrained in our everyday behavior that suddenly coming along and saying, smartphone ban is not going to work. So here we learn from participatory health promotion strategies. So you involve, of course, the school principals, you involve the young people. I believe you also did that. You involve the parents. In the city where I live in Bern, there is a very, very active parents movement at city level asking for this, organizing for this, working together with their children, and obviously also having to discuss not only what happens in schools, but what happens at the dinner table as well. So I think what we are seeing here is this, well, at one level, absolutely crazy interaction between algorithms that are developed somewhere in Southern California that impact the everyday life of your children and my grandchildren. And here, finding strategies that are creative, that in some cases need to be legislative, and that's what the European Union is doing with some of its digital acts. But at other cases, and I think this is really important, developing a new type of social consensus. And that needs discussions, that needs debates, and that needs a common understanding of how we see that the digital environment then interacts with, what should I call it, the analog environment, the real world, even though for a lot of these kids, there is no difference anymore. And if we look forward, we're going to find even more of that. And I like what Jonathan Haidt said when he wrote about the anxious generation. He said, we are in a very perverse situation. We have, in a way, we're overprotecting our children in the real world. You know, I'm going to drive you to school because something could happen. And we're underprotecting them in the digital world. And we have to find a new balance there. And I think discussing this, taking it forward, providing health literacy, using libraries, you know, there's so many mechanisms that are there at the local level in an infrastructure way, while at the same time you mentioned the inequality in infrastructures, Minister, ensuring that those that are not in the center of Reykjavik, you know, also have access when it's appropriate and don't feel I can't connect with somebody that is in another part of the world or
break
in
the
another
isolation,
part of
basically.
Iceland. Absolutely. So we need that balance. How do we connect? How do we break isolation? How do we interact? How do we use that tremendous new universe? And at the same time, how do we protect? And not to forget particularly those economic consequences for the local level, also in terms of the kind of workplaces and those kind of things.
Thank you. And for those of you in the room that are in your phones, I want to break news to you that smartphones are the new tobacco. I mean, this is a smoke-free environment, and we really don't want this to come from the top. So find this in the bottom of your heart and leave the phone aside and listen to Ilona here. But to our next question.
Yeah, can I just
Yes,
comment on
of
this?
course.
It's a very interesting point. Like with the housing, like Airbnb, my government, we are having legislation to sort of have stricter rules regarding Airbnb. And I think, well, Airbnb and this sort of sharing economy and housing is here to stay, but we have to regulate it. But it's very important that the prices of houses don't just go up, and that excludes people from certain areas in the city. So I think that's very important. People can have access to live in all neighborhoods of the cities. That's so inclusiveness is really fundamental there, absolutely. And also, if you look, you talked about telephones and the internet. I mean, how old is this telephone? This came up, the first iPhone
Look like 2 years old.
No, I'm not talking about this per type. This is the newest type, of course, but
of course.
That came in 2007, 2008. That was iPhone 1.
Yeah.
So we are still in this.
Yeah.
We haven't really coped. We are still in the process. We are now in a digital
I know.
complete revolution, and we have to sort of how it's going to look in the future. We don't know exactly now. But
we have to remember how long time it took us and medicine to kind of prove the effect of tobacco.
Addiction.
And we maybe don't have time, so we have to discuss this. But we have to discuss other things as well, because I have a script here.
Hey, you got us really excited now.
I know. And we are changing the whole program of the rest of the day, so the three of us are going to sit here all day, just talking about interesting stuff. But my second question to you, Eyjólfur, is kind of, you're in government. When we look just years behind us in Iceland, it's like we're traveling from crisis to crisis.
Yes, exactly.
How can we have a mindset and kind of skill set to look beyond the current crisis or the current coexisting crisis and having a long-term vision on all of this, the important things to do, and protect our societies also from, damage, terrorism, vandalism, or whatever?
That's a good...
You're here as a minister because you have all the answers.
Yeah, I know that, but I don't know. But that's a great question. It's true that the threat landscape today is growing increasingly complex,
yes,
even for a peaceful country such as Iceland. As we grow more and more reliant on technology, our infrastructure faces vulnerabilities beyond natural disaster and typical technical failures. We are increasingly susceptible to cyber attacks, sabotage of systems such as submarine cables. The potential for disruption of the infrastructure like submarine cables is especially concerning given Iceland's dependence on global telecom, transport, financial networks, etc. Even minor disruptions can be devastating. That's why we are establishing a secure satellite backup to ensure that our critical infrastructure maintains connectivity with the outside world in the event all our submarine cables, which are 3, are compromised simultaneously. We are also negotiating with the EU membership of the European Secure Satellite System, which will be operational in a few years. Our goal must be to move away from the constant crisis response we have all come to know and instead build a genuine resilience in our system. The recent situation in Grindavík with repeated volcanic eruptions clearly shows all constant crisis can take. Constantly be reactive. As a politician, it's easy to fall into the trap of pursuing quick fixes while neglecting long-term contingency plans for emerging risks such as climate change, cyber threats, and geopolitical situations. But we have a responsibility to maintain a culture of preparedness and push for a regular crisis preparation. I think we are pretty good in that in many ways, and especially regarding volcanic eruptions and other areas. An example of our proactive approach is the ongoing exercise program, Iceland Unconnected, Iceland Ótengt, where our representatives across various sectors discuss and prepare scenarios involving simultaneous failures of submarine cables connecting Iceland to the outside world that will be cut off. This exercise specifically practices prioritizing core operations of our most critical infrastructure, like including banks, hospitals, energy companies, telecommunications providers, etc., while temporarily suspending public access to entertainment and streaming services. On the legislative side, regarding cybersecurity, we have had the NIS1, or Network Information Security Directive, from the EU in place for a few years, and there are important lessons there to be learned from the implementation of that directive in our small society. And we are starting to lay the groundwork for NIS2. This is going to be much bigger, different generation of regulations, and then also implementation of other EU cybersecurity frameworks. So, but finally, our ongoing cooperation with the Nordic Baltic countries, the EU, NATO, on cybersecurity enhances our preparedness. It's clear that there's resilience, learning from others what others are doing, and have a standardized approach We are part of the EAA, which is really important, and that will help us help Iceland ensure that we remain secure and well prepared.
Yeah.
We
have to wrap up now. I'm looking at Ilona for a kind of, not kind of final words, but a sentence. I think we agree with Eyjólfur on a lot of this, but is there something, a pitfall that or people that we tend to forget when we think about these things?
Well, yes, of course, because, there are many, many vulnerable groups in each society, and each would claim, or their advocates would claim, that they are forgotten, and for many it's very real, and we see that as cuts are made and decisions have to be made. I see it in my country, Germany, military or social security. But the point I would like to make as a sort of closing thing is, I think we are challenged not now to, look from group to group to group, but actually to find strategies to hold our societies together.
Mm-hmm. Inclusiveness.
Yeah, exactly. Really, really have strategies, not here for women and there for migrants and everything else, but to say we are one society. And we are one Europe, or, not a walled society, obviously, but to create that sense of common purpose. And I'd like to end with a poem, if I may.
If it's short.
It's very short.
Yes.
It's by William Butler Yeats, and it's very famous in the polycrisis situation. You will have heard it. He said, "The center cannot hold. The best lack all conviction, while the worst are full of passionate intensity." And that is what we're experiencing, that those that want to break down our societies are full of that passionate intensity. And we have to work together to really make that center hold.
And with those wise words, we conclude the session. Thank you.
Thank you so much.